비트코인이 신고점가 부근에서 연일 하락과 횡보를 이어가고 있습니다. 실은 큰 수익을 바라시는 분들은 답답한 상황이라고 할 수 있는데요. 여기 중국의 최대 비트코인 거래소 BTCC의 최고 운영 책임자로 있다가 현재는 국가 단위 비트코인 채택 사업을 주력으로 하고 있는 젠3의 CEO 샘슨 모어가 지금의 상황을 설명해주고 있습니다.
Well, if you break down the inflation rate, the real inflation rate, and you peg it to something real like eggs, you get 11% annually. So if you apply that to the previous all-time high in 2021, that takes us to somewhere around 101K. So, that's kind of the floor. That's just keeping up with inflation. That's Bitcoin just keeping up with inflation. So 120K, 130K, that means you're beating inflation by 20% over a 4-year period or 30% over a 4-year period, which is not really spectacular. So I think we have a lot of room to run. The bull market has legs, and I think we can go probably anywhere up to 500,000 to a million in the next 12 months, because this is also a delayed market movement too. If you think about it, we should have ran already. We should already have been at 200,000 a coin, and we're still at 120. Well, it has to do with all the adoption happening in the world today. You have countries adopting Bitcoin. You have the ETFs, which are just taking in a massive amount of capital and eliminate the bottleneck for moving capital into Bitcoin from legacy markets. There is no more barrier. And then you have companies like Strategy and now Blockstream that are also moving into the treasury space. And Strategy alone has accumulated 600,000 plus Bitcoin. So, just like doing quick back of the napkin math, it just doesn't seem possible that we are still hovering around, inflation adjusted Bitcoin all-time highs from 4 years ago at 100 to 120,000. We should be well over 200,000. The fact is Bitcoin and stablecoins are now integrated into the US economy permanently and in a very deep way. I think what is interesting for Bitcoin is, one, the audit of Fort Knox, as we've been promised, and two, passing of the Bitcoin Act from Cynthia Lummis that would allow the US to actively accumulate Bitcoin. Now, there's a bit of other interesting news that came out today, which was a reporter filed some freedom of information requests and found that the US Marshals only have about 28,000 Bitcoin now, I believe. And that's a lot less than was expected. So I think these bills currently in motion or on the table are missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that the US needs to accumulate Bitcoin very, very rapidly if it wants to have a significant Bitcoin reserve treasury. So the window is closing. And I'm not sure they really realize that yet now, because if they did, they would be talking about the Bitcoin Act, not these other bills.
샘슨 모어는 최근 신고점 도달이 아직 진짜 랠리가 아니라고 봤습니다. 그저 인플레이션에 따른 가격 상승으로 보고 있었는데요. 그리고 향후 12개월 내 50만 달러에서 100만 달러까지 갈 것이라는 엄청난 상승 전망을 갖고 있었습니다. 지금 가격에서 무려 최대 8배 가까이 상승한 가격을 바라보고 있는 샘슨 모어였습니다. 근데 솔직히 전문가들 얘기 들으면 다 쉬워 보입니다. 그런데 막상 뛰어들면 현실은 다릅니다. 세력, 고래, 냉정한 시장 진짜 정보는 독점됩니다. 저희는 여러분이 5분 먼저 대응할 수 있도록 정보를 무료로 공개하고 있습니다. 하단 링크 클릭하고 함께 기회를 잡아봅시다.
It's kind of depressing to see alts run because that usually brings us back down as a whole. So Bitcoin rises and then the people that are investing in altcoins make some money and then they pump their coins, right? So it's always a cycle. Bitcoin goes up, it leads the pack, and then you see alts run a bit. And then things come back down and all the investors in altcoins get liquidated or, they blow up somehow or something happens. And then Bitcoin comes down along with it a little bit and then we go back up. But the cycle rinses and repeats over and over and over. I don't really worry too much about the alts because they're all very small cap coins, and compared to Bitcoin, it doesn't really matter. They can easily manipulate the floats and move their prices, and they can drive their prices through direct announcements like Ripple trying to do business, right? Like, what is Ripple? It's a company now, but in real world, that should technically be a stock or a security, but here we are. But I'm not really worried about that. I think in the long run, Bitcoin dominance will continue to increase. And I think this might be the final alt season, if there is one, but it doesn't look very promising. It's definitely a concern, especially with altcoin treasury companies. I don't see it ending well for any company that is taking Ethereum or Solana or anything as a reserve asset. I think those will end up very badly in the long run. And I don't know if that will have a cascading impact on Bitcoin. I see if there is a big run up and a drawdown, like similar to previous cycles, that some of the Bitcoin treasury companies, the smaller ones, might fold, especially if their CEOs don't understand what it is that they're holding. I see it less as a risk with MicroStrategy, or Strategy rather, because Saylor has proved himself through one of the biggest bear markets that we've had in recent years, and he's held and he's kept on accumulating. The newer entrants, it's unsure whether they have the fortitude to survive a drawdown. I think many of them are just copying, trying to fast follow strategy. And, that's definitely a red flag in my view. So I would say the bigger ones, or at least companies like Blockstream, helmed by Adam Back, are less risky because Adam understands Bitcoin to the fullest extent possible. And that means it's a safer investment. But the smaller ones, I would definitely say no. And definitely altcoin treasury companies, I wouldn't touch those with a 100-foot pole. I think getting a country to make Bitcoin legal tender is much harder and far longer path to adoption than people expect. You could think that for sure, that all the corporations will get all the Bitcoin, or nation states will get all the Bitcoin. Now, is it actually possible that billions of people around the world get physical Bitcoin that they themselves hold and front run the massive financial industrial complex? I'm really not sure, because the biggest barrier to people adopting Bitcoin is themselves and not understanding Bitcoin. And I think price is definitely a factor that makes people want to have Bitcoin. So people want Bitcoin at 0.12 million or 0.2 million or 0.5 million, but they don't want Bitcoin when it drops to 0.08 or 0.09. So this is just the way it's been and the way it always will be. People will just get Bitcoin at higher and higher prices, and there will just be less and less Bitcoin available for them. This is not yet the rally. I think they'll start waking up at 0.2 million or 200,000 a coin. Well, I would say retail is still sleeping on this. And anecdotally, most people I know have said, their friends and family are not reaching out to them yet to ask about Bitcoin. So we're not even close to peak retail awareness or retail mania. But, once you cross that next cognitive threshold of 0.2 M, that's when people think, okay, I'm missing out and I need to get this. And that's when they start piling in. It seems like we were not close to it yet. We still need to do like a 8x from here to get 1 million. So maybe 2026. But I don't discount the possibility that we can have a very rapid run up in the next 6 months if all factors line up and you do have retail coming on board.
샘슨 모우의 이야기 어떻게 들으셨나요? 일반 투자자들이 시장에 참여하고 비트코인에 대한 이해가 확대된다면 6개월 안에라도 엄청난 상승을 볼 수 있을 거라는 샘슨 모우. 하지만 제 채널에 등장하는 전문가들은 대부분 비트코인을 좋게 이야기해야 하는 위치에 있는 사람들입니다. 고객 자금을 굴리고 있거나 회사 자금으로 비트코인을 구매한 사람들이 많기 때문이죠. 시장에는 정답질환 없습니다. 그럼에도 많은 투자자들은 리스크를 감수하고 돈을 벌기 위해서 비트코인 시장에 뛰어드는 것이죠. 하지만 급등락하는 비트코인 시장에서 급등과 급락을 반복하는 차트를 보고도 개인 투자자들이 욕심과 공포를 떨쳐내고 평정심과 내 자산이 우상향을 하는 것은 말처럼 쉽지가 않으실 겁니다. 저 또한 전업 투자자 생활을 오래 했지만 항상 좋은 자리를 기다리고 인내해야 수익을 조금씩 낼 수 있었습니다. 그래서 저희 앤드류 트레이딩 팀에서는 어떻게 하면 일반 개인 투자자들도 투자 시장에서 수익을 낼 수 있을까? 구독자분들께 어떻게 하면 조금이라도 도움을 좀 드릴 수 있을까? 고민을 하다가 구독자분들도 비트코인이 명확하게 상승 추세가 나왔을 때만 투자를 하실 수 있게 한다면 수익이 조금 나지 않을까? 라는 생각을 하게 되었는데요. 제가 전업 투자를 하면서도 개발자로 오래 일을 했기 때문에 저도 써볼 겸 유료 결제를 해서 결국 만들었습니다. 바로 비트코인이 정말 신뢰할 수 있는 상승 추세인 건지 횡보인지 하락인지 알 수 있게 도움을 주는데요. 지금 보고 계시는 건 비트코인 차트인데요. 제가 빨간색 네모 박스로 표시해둔 곳을 보시면 주황색 61선과 파란색 121선이 교차하는 구간에서 추세가 변동되는 걸 보실 수 있습니다. 실제로 지금 비트코인은 최근에 61선과 121선이 데드크로스 하방 교차하면서 조정이 나오고 있는데요. 제가 운영 중인 앤드류 관점 채널에서는 보시다시피 2월 25일부터 제가 줄 곧 비트코인 하락 관점을 제가 말씀드리고 리스크 관리에 대해서 말씀을 드렸고 많은 분들이 도움을 받으셨습니다. 물론 데드크로스가 난다고 해서 무조건 하락하지도 상승하지도 않습니다. 저희 앤드류 트레이딩 팀에서 개발한 알파빗 지표는 약 8개의 고급 추세 기준과 트레이더들의 노하우를 담아서 차트가 상승할 확률이 높을 때 신호가 나오도록 개발을 하였습니다. 그 결과 저희 전문 트레이딩 팀 또한 판단에 도움받을 정도로 만족할 만한 놀라운 성과를 보였습니다. 시중에 유료로 팔 수 있을 정도로 가치 있는 지표이지만 저희 앤드류 채널 영상을 시청해주시는 구독자분들께는 무료로 제공해드리기로 마음먹었습니다. 저 또한 며칠 밤새 테스트하며 어렵게 만든 지표이지만 구독자분들 성원에 힘입어 저 또한 도움을 받고 있기 때문에 어렵게 공유드리기로 마음먹었습니다. 초보자분들부터 경력이 오래된 트레이더분들까지 굉장히 큰 도움을 받을 수 있는 지표라 도움이 되실 거라고 자부합니다. 신청 방법은 하단 더보기란과 고정 댓글에 나와 있으니 많은 신청 부탁드리고 이번 하락장에서 모두 잘 살아남으셔서 좋은 성적 내시면 좋겠습니다.